All right, we're going to talk about contracts this month. Even on Sunday night, I may try to slip in like a small, little easy contract to go over with you guys. Um, the main two that you got, hold on. Main two you guys need to learn is the listing agreement as well as the buyers. You are responsible for going over this contract with your buyers if you don't want to get in trouble or sued or anything. So we're going to talk about the buyer's contract on tonight. And I got some key stuff that I kind of want to share with y'all that y'all may not know. I did that. So usually all our contracts are in paperless pipeline. Except now Danielle doesn't have some of the contracts because they continue to change and update. Hold on real quick, y'all. Hello. Hey, I'm doing fine. Are you? The amenity center? I'm trying to think. I have never been there to be honest with you. So I'm sorry. Okay. Hold on. I can find out real quick. Let me try to call him. Okay. 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 Just submit it. Submit it. Okay. Okay. That'll work. Okay. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Sorry about that. One of my listings is about to get an offer, so I wanted to make sure. So sorry about that. But so in paperless pipeline, that's where most of our contracts are at. If you don't know, and you should know if you've been here, that that's where you can find most of them. But there are some that are in Form Simplicity. If you go to your MLS, they continue to update these contracts because of the lawsuit that happened a year or so ago. And they want to cover all they dot their I's and cross their T's and stuff like that. So this is why she left some of them in Form Simplicity. Now, if you're doing it by yourself, you need to know this stuff. Now, Danielle, I have Danielle do my stuff. All right. Transaction coordinator changed my life. But some of you, you like to do your own paperwork, and that is fine. All right. I can tell you right now that Danielle will save you and know what she's doing and keep you from making a lot of mistakes. But if you're trying to save that money, I definitely understand. Um, but you want to save your career as well. So you want to make sure that you're doing this stuff right. So I got my bullets. Form Simplicity is where you will find all the NEPA contracts and stuff like that. If you don't have it labeled up here in your MLS, you can go to your menu section over here and you can just type in Form Simplicity up here and it'll come up for you. So with that being said, it's a lot of stuff in here, y'all, that y'all pay for every year. Um, so you need to play with this. There's a lot of videos in here, etc. For you to learn a lot of this stuff to navigate through your houses and stuff like that and your contracts. So when I go in Form Simplicity, um, this will come up. This section will come up for you, and this is where all your listings and stuff are at. If you use this for DocuSign and to send your customers out things, this is where it will be at. And you will go to blank forms. Go to blank forms. If you got a pen, you may want to just write it down or whatever and follow me, or once again, this video will be up for you. All right. Blank forms, and then you got all your contracts right here. All your contracts, your addendums, everything is right here. If you do not see a particular form in our paperless pipeline, you can come here and find that form, or just send a quick email to Danielle. Besides me and Alicia, um, Danielle, Danielle pretty much knows more than everybody in this brokerage, including me, because she works on so many files with different brokerages and stuff like that. So every now and then I ask Danielle a question about certain stuff. So you are more than welcome to reach out if you can't get in touch with me, Alicia, or any of the other leaders for your thing. So with that being said, we're going to talk tonight about the as is contract. That's the fourth one on here. This stuff is in alphabetical order. Open it up. Come on. Don't play with me now. What y'all playing? Why y'all playing? Oh, dang. Okay, here we go. All right, can everybody see that? Everybody give me a thumbs up or something. Right, all right, all right. So, all right, if I don't get through all this tonight, I'm not going to keep y'all all night. It's 13 pages to this. I'm gonna go over the key points. We're not gonna read line from line. If I need to do a part two, I will on this. If we can get through this by 8 o'clock, that's cool too. So with that being said, this is an as-is residential contract for sale and purchase. All right, know that these contracts are as is. So when you're working with the buyer, and you can learn something on the seller side with this buyer's agreement too, because you should be telling your sellers the same thing as you get, if you got a listing, as you're getting buyer contracts in, you need to be going over this with your seller. You need to be going, not only if you just have a buyer, you should go over this, but if you have a seller, you should be going over this with your seller, letting them know, what this buyer is offering, and just don't tell them, hey, we got a $300,000 offer or whatever, because there's some key things in here that you can miss if they got checks by it or something like that, and you haven't read over this buyer's offer. You can be in real trouble around closing time because you skipped this, and then your seller is going to be surprised too because you missed it and you didn't go over it with them. And believe me, it happens. So, Realtor Association has made these contracts as is, all right? Meaning when a buyer is putting in an offer, they're putting it in. They're putting it in as is. I'm sorry, this girl. Hello. Hello. Uh-huh. I know they're working on it. Yeah, they're working on it. Uh-huh. Yeah. He's doing some work this week. Okay. Okay. All right. I believe he's doing a few rooms too, but I'll call you after 8. I'm in a training right now. I'll text you, or you can text me all your questions and I'll get back with you after 8. Okay, no problem. Bye. So like I said, they made them as is, so you let your buyers know that the contract you're putting in is as is, but there's some things that you can ask on the contract um for the sellers to do prior to you putting in the offer. And we're going to get to those things in a minute as well. But everything is labeled, okay, at the top or whatever. It's an information section. Like you say, number 2 right here, purchase price got a section. Number 3, time for acceptance. Number 4, so you look for the dark bullet points for each section in order to be able to go over with your particular buyer. So we're going to start. I always tell people to look to the side too. When I go over this with buyers, I tell them, if I send them a copy or whatever, if I'm not in front of them, even if I'm in front of them, they get a copy. And I say, we're going to look at these numbers over here. And when I call out a number, these are the main key things that we are going to go over, on this particular contract. So the first thing is parties, okay? Who is buying the home? Who is buying the home? You're going to put the seller's name first, all right? This is who they're buying the home from, the sellers. And then you're going to put the buyer's name in section number 2. Dropping down to say, and you need to make sure that these names are spelled right, all right? Make sure every name is spelled right, or you're going to have to do corrections before close. Either the title company is going to ask you to correct it before closing or throughout the contract, or even the lender may catch it and say, hey, this person name is spelled wrong. So make sure you double check that. Number 6, property description. This is where you're going to put the street address that they're buying. Always make sure that's right. What county is located in, and the property tax ID number. Now you can get this stuff off the MLS too. And we can go over that one day too on how to find this in the MLS, or you can go on coj.net. That is the best place to go to make sure that you're putting accurate, because sometimes the MLS be wrong. You're going to put the legal description, lines 9 through 11, and together, hold on. So when you're putting in this contract, okay, just say you're showing a house. You are showing a house, and they go in that house, all right, and they got it decked out. They got it decorated. I mean, they got drapes. They got nice appliances. I mean, they got the touch screen, refrigerator. They got all that in that house. They got beautiful chandeliers. All right. Guess what? Your buyer fall in love with that house. They think all that stuff coming with it. All right. It could be very well that that seller plans on taking they $5,000 drapes, they nice chandeliers, their touchscreen refrigerator, their stove. So never assume that all that stuff is going to be in there once a buyer sees that house. So when you put that legal description, and then it says in verse 12 and number 12, together with all existing improvements and fixtures, including built-in appliances, built-in furnishings, and attached wall-to-wall carpeting and flooring, real property, unless specifically is excluded in paragraph 1E. All right. So we're in 1. So this would be E down here for 24. So you would need to find out from that listing agent what items are excluded from the purchase. Before you write up this contract, you need to check with that listing agent and say, hey, are the drapes included? Is the refrigerator coming with the property? Is that stove coming? Is the chandeliers coming, etc.? So that your buyers, when y'all do y'all final walkthrough or close, y'all walk in there and y'all be like, hey, where the drapes and all that? And they gone. And it's simply because you did not communicate with the listing agent to find out that all that stuff stay in there. All right. So you will need to let your buyer know in paragraph E that, hey, they say they taking their chandeliers and them pretty drapes and all that you like. Okay. So even in the contract going up to 15, it says personal property. unless excluded in paragraph 1E, once again down here, or by other terms of the contract, the following items which are owned by seller and existing on the property as of the date of the initial offer are included in the purchase. Ranges, ovens, refrigerator, dishwashers. I had somebody wanted to take their dishwasher, a seller. All right. The buyer might have thought the dishwasher was coming with it. All right. Disposals, ceiling fans, light fixture, drapery rods. I mean, they may even take the rods, y'all. Draperies, blind, window treatments, smoke detectors, garage door openers, thermostats, television wall mounts. They may think the wall mounts are stained. All right. So this is stuff, these are things that you have to ask before you put in an offer, so that you can write and let that buyer, your buyer, know, hey, this stuff is excluded. I know you love this house and you fell in love with their decorations, but all this stuff gone. All right. Going down to number 2, the purchase price. If the house is 400,000, you're going to put that right there on line 27. All right. Line 28 is the initial deposit to be held in escrow. That's at the title company. All right. Normally it's 1% of the purchase price. That's the real estate quote unquote rule. So we're talking about a $400,000 house. You tell your buyer, hey, normally it's around 4,000. I may can talk them down. All right. Every seller not going to go down on that binder because they want to protect themselves. So with that being said, you can say $2,000 binder out the 4,000. You can say 1,000 and they may accept it. Now, a good listing agent like me, I'm gonna shoot it back probably because I want to protect my seller, and I'm gonna ask my seller, use, and I'm gonna tell them usually it's 1%. They say they want to put down $1,000, um, and sometimes there's a reason for that. They may be on the no down payment assistance program. They may not have that much money. If your seller doesn't have an offer, I mean, they might as well roll with it, if they don't have it. But I'm just letting y'all know the golden rule for a binder is normally 1%, but you can make yourself look good with any binder. Yeah, it's 4,000, but I'm gonna get it done for 1,000. That's all we need to put down. All right. And you do want to protect your buyer as much as possible, just in case for some reason something happened to where they lose their binder deposit. You don't want to have them out there with 10, 15, $20,000 binder um that you fighting over. All right. Down here, you got the escrow agent, just say Landmark Title Company or whatever. You're going to put their address, their email, their phone, their fax right there. Line 36, check this out. This is an additional deposit. All right. A lot of you probably didn't know that just say out the fourth, just say that seller do want 4,000. Your buyer got 2,000 and they be like, hey, we're going to have another 2,000 next Friday to put down. All right. You can put right here that an additional deposit is going to be delivered in escrow to the title company within 2 weeks, or how many other days they say they're going to have it. So you can split the binder also. Now you can do that. You can negotiate that with new construction too. Alicia, I know you do a lot of new constructions. I do it all the time. Um, you can put as much as you can down and then tell them, hey, we need to break this up month by month. Especially if, you 6 to 8 months or a year out from building. You can split that binder. But, I've had it to where, we'll put the other in 5 days, 3 days, or whatever. But you can split that binder up. Coming down here, balance to close, and you can get all this information from your lender. All right. You can get all this information from your lender about the balance to close and all that. All right. Number 3, time for acceptance of the offer. All right. What's today? October 7th. Just say we all put in an offer today. All right. We can give the seller how long we want them to respond. If we want an immediate answer, we can put by 12 noon tomorrow. All right. Generally, the golden rule is 24 to 48 hours. All right. Sometimes you don't want to give a seller 48 hours, especially if a house is hot. You kind of want to know the answer as soon as possible. So you can put a deadline by 6 p.m. tomorrow. You know, a seller should already know what they want for their house. So I normally don't go out 48 hours. I will go out 24 hours, or, you know, if I have enough time, if I'm submitting something around this time, I may say, hey, by 6 p.m. tomorrow, you know, we need to know. But if that seller don't get back to me by 6 p.m. tomorrow, guess what? This offer is not valid. Is not valid because I put until 6 p.m. tomorrow. Now, that's one reason you do give it 48 hours in order to get it signed and stuff out, so you won't have to make any corrections on the offer. You have enough time for everybody to sign without scratching anything out or even doing a new contract, because you didn't give everybody enough time to think it over, pray about it, especially if it's a low ball offer or something like that, and you will end up changing it. So this is why, and then it says it right here, time for acceptance of any counter offers shall be within 2 days after the date of the counter offer is delivered. So sometimes you got to give sellers time to think about it. So once again, it just depends on the house. All right. 48, the effective date of this contract shall be the date when the last one of the buyers and sellers has signed or initialed and delivered this offer or final counter offer. All right. So your buyer signs this offer. Okay. He signs it on the 7th. He or she or they sign it on the 7th. The seller doesn't decide to sign it until Thursday, which is the 9th. That is when the contract starts. When both parties have signed the contract, not when the buyer sign it, but when both parties sign the contract, that is the official start date of the countdown of how many ever days you put on the contract. All right, which goes to our next thing. Number 4, the closing date. All right, you always need to find out from your buyer when they want to close. All right. The best person to get with is your lender. All right. To find out when can they close this deal. All right. Most lenders can do it in quote 30 days. All right. That is an attractive offer to anybody. The seller may not want to close in 30 days. You need to find that out too. They may need 45 days. They may need 60 days. So you want to find out from that listing agent, hey, when can your seller close? Um, so just say 30 days. So we'll say November 7th that they can close this. You get with the lender and you say, hey, I want to make sure you can get this closed in 30 days. All right. Any good lender can say yes. All right. Probably. Sometimes you want to be safe so that you won't have to do any addendums or anything like that. You may put 35 days. Just to be on the safe side, because anything can happen. All right. Which talks about this extension of closing date. You should always tell number 55, number 5, extension of closing dates. You don't never tell a buyer you're going to close it in 30 days. I don't care how good you are, how good you think you will. You don't sit there and promise them that, because anything can happen. You haven't did the inspection. You haven't did the appraisal. You don't know if something's going to happen to that seller to where they have to extend the um the closing date. You just don't know. So you tell them, we're going to try to close this house in 30 days. All right? That is the plan. That is the plan. But as this contract says, it can be an extension. It can be an extension to this closing date so that they know that something can happen. Listen, stuff pop up on credit, y'all, at the last minute, some type of way. These creditors know that you're looking for a house. All right. And they will put something on your credit at the last minute. You don't even know. These people you done met done went through credit repair or done got something off that you ain't never seen. and you thinking they okay. And right at the last minute, they done pop something on their credit or something done jump back on their credit. So the extension to closing date is is possible and it happens. And some of us, you ain't closed enough houses just to know. I know you've been getting everything closed in the 30 days or whatever. But I'm telling you, once you get to them 50 houses, those 100 houses, close 150 houses, 200 houses, you're going to have something is going to come up with somebody to where you're going to have to put extensions in. All right. So, in the event closing funds from the buyer's lender are not available on closing date due to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau closing disclosure delivery, they get behind. Underwriters get behind, overwhelmed, depending on the market. All right. They didn't put the closing disclosures out in time. That's going to extend. All right. And you done promised this they done packed up. You done told your buyers, they done canceled their lease and all kind of stuff. And now you stuck because you promised them you were going to close it in 30 days and you stressed out. You stressed out because you were depending on somebody else. We not giving nobody no money. If we were giving the money, we can guarantee something. But we ain't giving nobody no money. So we got to let people know, hey, this could be an extension. So just be prepared for that. If loan approval has been obtained and lender's underwriting is complete, the closing date shall be extended for such a period necessary to satisfy CFB requirements, provided such period should not exceed 7 days. So look, it's in the contract. It's in the contract that it could extend for 7 days if the closing CFB requirements have not been required. So let your buyers know that. Let your buyers know that. Number 61, check this out. If an event constituting force majeure causes services essential for closing to be unavailable, including unavailability of utilities or issue of hazard, wind, flood, or homeowner's insurance, closing date shall be extended as provided in Standard G. So, force majeure, like I say, utility problems. Guess what? The power don't went off. Do we know what's going to happen on November 7th? Do we know how the weather is going to be on November 7th? All right. Do we know if a hurricane going to come? Do we know if a tornado going to hit? See, and when stuff like that start happening, guess what? The homeowners insurance, they don't give out insurance. So once again, you done promise these people in 30 days we moving. But guess what? Hurricane Mary coming that week. Ain't no moving. It's gonna be an extension. The power went out to where you can't do your last final walkthrough. Somebody done hit a pole. And they ain't gonna be able to fix it for the next 3 to 4 days. You got an extension. All right, so it happens. Occupancy and possession. All right, check this out. This is important too. Number 6. Unless paragraph 6B is checked, seller shall at closing delivery, occupancy, and possession of the property to buyer free of tenants, occupants, and future tenancy. Also at the closing, seller shall have removed all personal items and trash from the property and shall deliver all keys, garage door openers, access devices, and codes as applicable to the buyer. If the occupancy is to be delivered before closing, buyer assumes all risks of loss to the property from the date of occupancy, shall be responsible and liable for maintenance from that day, and shall have accepted the property in its existing condition as of the time of taking occupancy. See rider T pre-closing occupancy buyer. So there has been situations where the buyer is in trouble. The seller done moved out. All right. They gone to another state. The buyer wants to get in. All right, so they want a pre-occupancy before closing. Very few sellers allow that because there's a risk to that. All right. You can go in there and damage their house before you close and decide you don't want to close. So a lot of sellers won't do it. But there are some sellers that may allow for a fee sometimes your buyer to move in the house early. All right. This specifically talks about that if they move in before closing, they assume all risks of loss to the property from the date of occupancy. All right. It also says at the beginning of this that at closing, seller should deliver the keys and all that to the buyer. All right. I've had sellers, man, they don't clean up, the yard not cut, they leave stuff in there. That buyer go in there for final walkthrough and be like, I ain't taking this house like this. All right. So this is where I say the seller needs to know this stuff too, because they will. They'll just say, man, I don't feel like taking this stuff. But that buyer be like, no, I want this house clean. So no, we're not closing until they clean, until they come get this, until they come get this out the backyard and stuff like that. So you got to tell your sellers, hey, this house should be clean and the yard should be cut. Because a buyer can be picky, and this is per the contract. All right. Section B, line 72, check if property is subject to lease or occupancy after closing. All right. You may deal with an investor or somebody buying a house that has a lease to it. All right. If you're operating on the listing side, you must know that a seller must honor the lease. All right. A seller may want to put their house on the market before the lease is up. But if that lease ain't up to December 31st, guess what? That leaser does not have to move out that house till December 31st. They don't have to move. They don't even have to show the house. You need to let that seller know, because the seller don't know. They think it's their house. They can do whatever they want. They can sell their house whenever they want, which they can. But that person that's living in it don't even have to show it. I'm having a problem with that now, but the sellers knew that. I'm selling a triplex, and the tenants ain't even want me to take pictures. They were like, they don't want nobody in their house. I had to take pictures of the outside. And guess what? They got every right. So yeah, it's taking a little while for me to sell it because the tenants are being hard. I was supposed to have a showing today at 5. Nobody was gonna show the property. So what I tell sellers with that, sometimes you got to make agreements with them tenants. You got to say, hey, I'm gonna give you half month's rent off if you show this price. If they really want to sell, you got to make agreements with them. All right, sometimes. Number 7, line 83, assignability. All right. You will get this from a lot of wholesalers. All right. Be careful of wholesalers. I mean, some of them good. They got a lot of buyers and investors in their pipeline. But they will use this section, assignability, as a way to assign it. They can go up under contract with you with their name, but they done check this box. Buyer may assign and thereby be released from any future liability under this contract. All right. So what a wholesaler does is they come see the house and they say, hey, I'm gonna give you 350 cash for this $400,000 house. All right. You done talk your seller into doing the contract with it. They desperate, they motivated, they want to sell. But that wholesaler is going to find somebody to buy it for 375. And then guess what? They're going to make $25,000 off this contract, because they are the ones that negotiated it for 350. The investor knows it's worth 400, and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to give you 370, 375 for it. And guess what? It's going to be 2 closings. So the wholesaler going to get, they check more than the realtor. All right. They're going to get their $20,000 to $25,000, and the seller is going to get the 350. for what they went up under contract for. So watch this box too on number 7. You got this check, may not assign this contract. If no box is checked, then buyer may not assign this contract. All right. So there's nothing wrong with it. You just got to be mindful of who a wholesaler is, because a wholesaler, they're not even going to put down a binder a lot of times. They're not, or if they do, they're gonna, if they can't find nobody within 3 days to buy the property, they're gonna cancel the contract and get their binder back. So that's what that's all about. All right, number 8, financing. This is where you find out, is this a cash transaction with no finance? They'll check that box. This contract is contingent upon within, if left blank, 30 days. All right. If you need 45, put it there. If you need 35, put it there. If you need 60, put it there. Approval period, buyer obtain approval of a conventional FHA or VA loan. You will check one of these boxes. All right. All this other stuff, it may be fixed, it may be adjustable. Get with your lender. You can check that. And then this part right here about adjustable rate, that ain't really all that important. It says right here, if left blank. All right. But if the lender is saying, hey, I can get this if I can keep it up under 5% interest rate, you may want to put that to protect yourself. All right. Then prevailing rate based upon buyer's credit worthiness, and for a term of, you can put that there. If left blank, you got 30 days. All right. Number 97, buyer should make application for financing usually within 5 days. 5 days. All right. You got a pre-approval, but they haven't did the application. All right. Once you go up under contract, you are saying right here that the buyer is going to start filling out the application within 5 days of the y'all going up under contract. And that's very important that you get them with that lender immediately, that you get them over that contract, that lender, that contract immediately, so that that lender can start working on them and tell them, hey, this buyer has put in the application. All right. And usually it only take a day or two, but they give you up to 5 days to do that. So you want to stay on top of that. To get current loan approval or whatever. So let me make sure I ain't missing nothing on here. That's the 8. All right, this is important right here. Um, Loan approval which requires buyer to sell other real property shall not be considered loan approval unless rider V is attached. So sometimes your buyer, in order to get approved for a home, has to sell their other property. This is very critical to let the listing agent know that, hey, we got the pre-approval, but they got to sell this other house. Or I normally I normally don't even take buyers to look for another home if we're not up under contract already. If we're not up under contract on their current home that they have to sell, I'm not going out looking, because I know most sellers are not going to take a chance on a buyer that has to sell their home in order for them to buy their home. So I explain that to my buyers and be like, hey, we got to get this house sold or up, at least up under contract first, um, before we really go start looking at homes. 102, buyer's failure to use good faith and diligent effort to obtain loan approval during the loan approval period shall be considered a default under the terms of the contract. So if they don't do it within 5 days, they're in default. For purposes of this provision, diligent effort includes but is not limited to timely furnishing all documents and information required by the buyer's mortgage broker and lender, and paying for appraisal and other fees and charges in connection with the buyer's application for financing. Now, we had a realtor go through this that they're asking to pay for appraisals early. Soon as you really do the application within the 5 days, they're asking you to pay for appraisals. Now, this is dangerous, but it's in the contract. All right. This ain't used to be in the other contracts. So this is probably why a lot of lenders are doing it. But they're asking to show good forth effort that you are serious about moving forward with this contract. Now, if a lender is asking you to pay the appraisal upfront within 5 days, you got to let them know, hey, we haven't even did the home inspection yet. I can give you the money, but don't pay the money to no appraisal until I figure out whether I want to move forward with this home. All right. So protect your buyer's appraisal money if the lender is requiring that they get it, because depending on the market, sometimes appraisals go out weeks before an appraisal can be ready, or go to the house. So sometimes they like to put it in the system early and get it. But with that being said, you want to go and get that home inspection done in the first day. I've seen people do home inspection same day of the signed contract. They have their home inspector ready. So if that's the case, you want to get it out the way before the 5 days, or you want to put 7 days for the contract. It says if left blank, you can do 7 days, 8 days, whatever you want. But go and get that home inspection out as soon as you can so that you can keep that train rolling at all times. All right, let's keep it moving. So we're talking about the loan approval process. So if the loan approval period 111, buyer obtains loan approval, buyer shall notify seller of the same in writing prior to expiration of the loan approval. All right, your lender or you as the realtor should always be letting the listing agent know what's going on. Letting them know within 5 days, hey, we got loan approval. Letting them know when the home inspection is, letting them know when the appraisal going to be done, letting them know weekly how the loan is doing. See, this is what I talk about networking in with other realtors, as well as doing business with other realtors, because I'm telling you, it's going to help you years from now, because the way you operate as the buyer's agent with that listing agent, guess what? When they got multiple offers, they gonna go with you. They gonna pick your offer. They gonna tell, hey, I worked with this realtor before. Their communication is off the chain. They're upfront and stuff like that. Every realtor isn't like that. So you want to have great communication. All right. You got some lenders out there that do very well communicating throughout the whole entire process with either you or the listing agent. Because really, a lot of good lenders, they want to earn business from the listing agent as well. So they'll go out there and they'll communicate, they'll over communicate, letting them know how everything is going. And you want everybody to have peace throughout this, all right? You don't want everybody panicking or whatever. So you want to make great communication with everybody. So let's talk about the loan approval period. 120, coming on down. Seller may elect to terminate this contract by delivering written notice of termination to buyer within 3 days after expiration date of loan approval. And provided buyer is not in default under the terms of the contract, buyer shall be refunded the deposit, thereby releasing buyer and seller from all further obligations of this contract. So listen, this is what they're saying. All right, your person get the loan approval. They don't put down the deposit within 5 days. This is saying right here that 3 days after the expiration of the loan approval, that the seller has every right to terminate the contract. They may have seller's remorse. You may have even did the home inspection within that period. They still have every right to terminate the contract. All right. If they're a good listing seller or whatever, they should give you your money back for your home inspection if they just decided to terminate the contract because they didn't want to sell and not waste your money. All right. And you can battle that if you need to. See what time it is. All right, 7:46. It don't look like we're not going to finish this tonight. So there will be a part two. But so we got about 15 more minutes of this. Then I'm gonna let y'all go, or you can ask questions for what I've gone over so far. Um, so that's what that section is about. And I want y'all to read this contract. Listen, I know the contract and I read it the day before training. I read all 13 pages. Guess what? It's 13 pages, y'all. It's 13 pages. It took me a little over 30 minutes to read over it and to have a good understanding. You have to take the time, print it out, go over it, highlight the things that you may not understand on it. All right. But I'm just trying to bring a little clarity tonight to some of the things that you might miss on the contract. 127. All right, let's go down a little bit. All right, now we're down to closing costs and fees. All right, you're telling your buyer and you're explaining, hey, there's going to be closing costs. Cost to be paid by the seller. All right. Every closing has closing costs. You do not know the fees. You get what's called the cost estimate sheet from your title company so that they can see what fees they're talking about. It says right here, if prior to closing, seller is unable to meet the as-is maintenance requirement as required by paragraph 11, a sum equal to 125% of estimated cost to meet the as-is maintenance requirements shall be escrowed at closing. If actual cost to meet the as-is maintenance requirement exceed escrow amount, seller shall pay such actual costs. Any unused portion of escrowed amount should be. So, there's places in this contract to where you can put and we're going to get to that down the line as well, but even though this is an as-is contract, you can say, hey, in the contract we're asking for up to $5,000 worth of work if we find it during the home inspection, and we'll get to that section soon where I'll show y'all where that's at. But this is pretty much what that's talking about. Or you can ask them to pay certain closing costs for your buyer. But these are standard closing costs for each one. And you kind of need, you don't, stuff like this, you can become an expert in knowing these because you will have some buyers that be like, hey, what are the appraisal fees? What are the buyer's inspection? What are the buyer attorney fees? How much that is? Um, I always send them, even though I know this stuff, I always send them to the one who created the cost estimate. All right. When you're doing a buyer's inspection with your buyer and they're looking over the report and they're asking you, what is this? You ain't no home inspector. All right. Either call the buyers, the inspector, the home inspector that you paid to explain this, or we can hop on a three-way. All right, we can hop on a three-way. Some of them pick their own home inspectors. But I would take the time to hop on a three-way with them if they got questions. But I'm not fixing to explain nothing on a home inspection. Absolutely nothing. All right. So, and even with these cost estimates, John, explain these fees and why you charging this much, why you charging this much for these fees. All right. But it's totally up to you. You operate your business, you're an independent contractor, you operate your business how you want. And if you want to be that one that know all this stuff, done studied all this stuff and be able to explain it, then go right ahead. Explain it. Title evidence. All right, title evidence at least blank. It got 15 days. All right, this is something that the title company is supposed to do for you. All right, run title to make sure that everything is okay. Everything is okay with title. All right, because guess what? You don't put John Doe is buying this house or whoever trying to sell it. John Doe is trying to sell this house. But guess what? It's up under his grandma name. And you didn't catch it. So they want to make sure that the title is with the seller who and then they'll do a municipal lien search. Every lien search is not on every lien is not on COJ. So sometimes you got to do a deeper search for a lien, and that's what a title company does. It's called a municipal lien search. All right. Hey, I'm doing a training. I'll call you back. All right. All right. So the title company or whatever is right there. Line 172. Seller should designate closing agent and pay for owner's policy and charges. Watch for that box right there. If you'll represent the buyer, you can say the seller, which the seller does usually already have a title company they're working with. But if you feel more comfortable with your title company, you have every right to answer. Buyer should designate closing agent and pay for the owner's policy and charges for premium. So you can check that box instead of the seller's box. That don't mean the seller gonna say yeah, but sometimes, especially investors, they want to work with their own title company. A lot of times I have to go back to the seller because they get great discounts. So a lot of times I have to go back to the seller and say, hey, this buyer wants to use their own. Is it okay if we switch over to theirs? And a lot of times it's yeah. Survey. Some properties want a survey. If you're dealing with a on the seller side, you always ask them, do they have a current survey? All right. I believe anything over 10 years old, don't quote me on the 10 years, but I know it's something like that, 10 to 15 years old, or if they made any additions since they bought the house, that a new survey is required. But sometimes if the survey is within the years um, that they allow, then they will allow the survey and won't have to get a new survey. Home warranty is right here. You can ask the buyer or the seller to pay for a home warranty. You put right here who the company you want to go with at a cost not to exceed, you may say $1,000, you may say $500. But when you're putting in your offer, if you want them done and you want to protect your buyer at all times with a home warranty if possible. So you may want to ask the seller, will they consider doing a home warranty and put it right there. All right, special assessments. Just pretty much talking about liens, etc. Read that. And then you got number 10, disclosures. All right. So there's a lot of disclosures that has to be disclosed to the buyer. So you're asking for these disclosures, radon gas disclosure, permit disclosures, mold. Is there any mold in the house? Flood zone, elevation. Is this a flood zone? So all that the listing agent should have, energy brochure, lead-based paint. And once again, if you're working with Danielle, she's gonna make sure you have all this stuff. If you're working by yourself, trying to get this stuff, it is in Paperless Pipeline or it's in Form Simplicity. That you have to get these disclosures to sign. Homeowners Association, disclosure, property tax disclosure, FERPTA, foreign investment, and what we call the seller's disclosure, y'all. So the seller disclosure is the disclosure that the listing agent should have their seller fill out so that you guys know what's going on with the house before you do a home inspection. All of you that's working with buyers should ask for that seller's disclosure. You should read over that seller's disclosure. You should give that to your buyer so that they will know how old the seller is saying this roof is, how old they're saying the electrical panel is, how long they're saying, if anything has been damaged, if they've had any flood. All that should be in the seller's disclosure. Now, with that being said, the seller is not completely liable, even though they fill out that seller's disclosure. They could be lying. So this is why you do your due diligence with your good home inspector to make sure that all this stuff in this seller's disclosure is correct. All right. Property maintenance, condition inspections, property maintenance, except for ordinary wear and tear and casualty loss. Seller shall maintain the property, including but not limited to lawn, shrubbery, and pool, in the condition existing as the effective date, as is maintenance requirements. So, with that being said, you go to a house. Let me tell you something. I've had some sellers try to hide big old holes up on the carpet, and I'd be like, you come in that house the day before closing, you see a hole, you see a toe up floor, you see tile messed up, and all that. You got to operate with integrity on both ends, and you got to let them know, hey, I saw it. If you saw it, um, you need to let people know about it, whether it's on the seller side or whatever, because people will try to hide stuff. And so, if your buyer wants a home, y'all, it's a good idea to take pictures of the home as is. Now you get a lot of pictures on the MLS because that's why you took them to the home, because they like the pictures. But while you're in that house, if they're interested in that home, take pictures just so when you get the closing and you do your final walkthrough, you be like, hey, this one like this. Because stuff get damaged throughout them 30 to 45 days too. Stuff get damaged and you be like, hey, we didn't sign this contract at that. So lastly, number 12, property inspection right to cancel. All right, property inspection, this is your inspection. Property inspection and right to cancel. Buyer shall have, if left blank, then it's just 15 days. You got up to 15 days to do your inspection. All right. If you want to make your offer attractive, put 5 days, put 3 days. No, we ain't waiting. No, we want this house. Matter of fact, my home inspector right around the corner. We can go on and do this today. Put 1 day. But no, you want to give yourself time, little time to look over the home inspection, make sure everything is right. So you don't want to pressure yourself if you have to, but 15 days is a long time, unless you got a 45, 60-day closing. So, like I say, this lastly, within which to have such inspections of the property performed as buyer shall desire during the inspection period. If buyer determines in buyer's sole discretion that the property is not acceptable to the buyer may terminate this contract by delivering written notice of such election to a seller prior to expiration of the inspection period. So this is why you got to be careful if you're going to put 5, 7, 3 days, that you could lose that binder if you don't let them know within that specific time frame that you're canceling the contract. So you do want to be safe and give them time. So if you want to leave it blank, leave the 15, that is fine. But still just try to get it done as soon as possible. If buyer timely terminates this contract, the deposit paid shall be returned to the buyer. Thereupon, buyer and seller shall be released of all further obligations under this contract. However, buyer shall be responsible for prompt payment for such inspections, for repair of damage to and restoration of the property resulting from such inspections, and shall provide seller with paid receipts for all work done on the property. The preceding provisions shall survive termination of this contract unless buyer exercises the right to terminate grant herein. Buyer accepts the physical condition of the property and any violation of governmental building, environmental and safety codes, restriction of requirements, but subject to seller continuing as is maintenance requirements. And buyer shall be responsible for any and all repairs and improvements required by the buyer's lender. So, with that being said, your home inspector always make sure they have insurance because stuff can get damaged. It can accidentally get damaged, or once your home inspector leave, you didn't show up or you didn't catch it. Seller come home and say, "Hey, my washer and dryer wasn't broke. It wasn't broke. I just used it last night. Did your home inspector test this washer and dryer?" And so they're going to want to pay, or they're going to try to take it out their binder or whatever. They're not going to sign it. So, with that being said, y'all, it's 8 o'clock. Don't want to keep y'all all night. We're on page 5 of this contract. We will finish the rest next Tuesday of the specific contract. And does anybody have any questions or anything to say before we dismiss?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
I heard you say that we always will use the as is contract, and I remember you saying that before. But what is
Mhm.
the difference between this contract and the other residential purchase and sale agreement?
Well, the trip part is all of them are as is. Both of them are as is. This honestly just says, this the one I prefer y'all to use, I would say. The other one got some other language that doesn't protect the buyer as much. And we're gonna go over that one as well at the time. I can't there's some other written spots in there, I would say, that you got to be careful of. And I don't want to jump ahead till we go over it and share the difference. But if you have a question prior to that, you can send it to me. Okay, I see your hand. I see your hand. See your thumb, I mean, thumbs up. Anybody else? Got anything? All right. All right, let us pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for all these agents that found it not robbery to want to learn about the buyer's contract and contracts in general, God. I pray, God, that you bring back remembrance, God, to what we taught. I pray that something was learned on tonight. I pray for each of these agents, God, to close out the year strong, God. That you send buyers from the north, the south, the east, and west. I pray that you do exceedingly and abundantly above all they can ask or think, God. Father, I pray, God, that this prayer is heard on tonight, God, and that you just send your angels and encamp them around all of us. And if anybody is dealing with anything that's not like you on this call on tonight, we bind it right now in the name of Jesus, God. Father, I pray for the peace that surpasses all understanding, God. I pray for families right now. I pray for husbands and wives. I pray for our children, God. I pray, God, for our moms, dad, grandparents, whoever is still here and not gone on to glory, God. I pray for our friends, God. Father, I pray right now, God, and believe, God, that finances, God, will continue to come in our household and that there will be no lack. There will be no lack in any household at Dream Big Realty of Jack's God. We confess that and we believe it right now in the name of Jesus. Faith without works is dead, God. So, Father, not only give us the faith, God, but give us the work ethic, God, to complete what you have started in us, God. I believe you have called all of us into this area of real estate, God. So, God, I just ask that you blow our mind. Continue to protect Dream Big Realty Objects from the enemy. Continue to protect all our agents from the enemy. And God, just cover us with your precious blood. And we count it joy. And Father, we pray for the rest of this week, God, that blessings, God, just overflow us, God, that surprise visits, God, and surprise calls, God, and surprise engagements with people, God, that you just blow our mind, not only this week, God, but for the rest of the year. Prepare us for 2026 like never before. In the name of Jesus. And we thank you for this prayer on tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, y'all. Y'all have a beautiful evening, and I'm here if y'all need me.
All right. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.